Jonathan Cross stood in the hospital hallway with one hand resting on the stranger's shoulder. He did not squeeze. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at the man and said, "Take your hand out of your pocket." The stranger obeyed. Slowly. A black phone appeared between his fingers. Hospital security arrived seconds later, moving with the nervous urgency of people who had recognized Jonathan before they understood what was happening. The man in the dark coat lifted both hands. "I was not doing anything." Jonathan removed his hand from the man's shoulder. "You followed Ms. Hart from St. Bridget's Church. I work for Lakefront Property Assessment. That contract was terminated 20 minutes ago." The man looked confused. Then afraid. "You cannot terminate me personally. I terminated the company employing you." One security officer stepped between them. "Sir, we need everyone to remain calm." Jonathan's eyes moved toward him. "I am calm." He was. That was the frightening part. The stranger pointed at me. "She photographed our vehicle." "You photographed her home," Jonathan replied. "It was a public street. You entered a hospital parking structure after following her across the city. I was told to document community opposition." "By whom?" The man's mouth closed. Jonathan waited. No threat. No movement. Just silence. The man looked toward the elevator. Then toward security. "I want an attorney." "Good," Jonathan said. "You will need one." The guards escorted him toward the security office. I remained outside my mother's hospital room, gripping my phone so tightly that the edge pressed into my palm. Jonathan watched the man disappear. Then he turned toward me. "You should be inside with your mother. You should not be here. That is becoming a pattern." "I mean it." "So do I." His overcoat was damp across the shoulders. Rain had darkened the ends of his hair. He had left the tower after 9 at night, crossed half the city, and arrived at Mercy South before the man following me reached my mother's room. I did not know how. I was not sure I wanted to know. "How did you find me?" I asked. "Lila traced the vehicle through the property assessment contract. That tells you who followed me. Not where I was." The driver entered the hospital parking structure using a company fuel card. The transaction generated a location alert. "You track vendor fuel cards?" After discovering that a vendor may be conducting unauthorized surveillance, yes. The answer was reasonable. The speed was not. "You came yourself?" "Yes." "Why?" His gray eyes stayed on mine. "Because sending someone else would have taken longer." The hospital hallway hummed around us. A nurse pushed an empty wheelchair past the elevators. Somewhere nearby, a machine began beeping. Rubber saws moved quickly across the floor. Jonathan's presence seemed too large for the narrow corridor. He belonged in glass boardrooms and private elevators. Not beneath fluorescent lights beside vending machines that charged $3 for bottled water. "You could have called security," I said. "I did." "Then you did not need to come." "No." The answer was immediate. Honest. And more dangerous than any excuse. Before I could respond, the door to my mother's room opened. My father stepped into the hallway. He saw me first. Then Jonathan. Everything in his face changed. Daniel Hart had spent 15 years living with pain. I had watched him face foreclosure notices, medical bills, unemployment, and a surgery that failed to restore movement to his left leg. I had rarely seen him afraid. He was afraid now. Not the helpless kind. The kind that turned into anger before anyone could witness it. "You," he said. Jonathan did not move. "Mr. Hart. Get away from my daughter." My father's voice carried down the hall. A nurse looked up from the station. I stepped between them. "Dad. He has no business here." Someone followed me to the hospital. And he arrived like he knew it would happen. Jonathan's expression remained calm. "The man who followed Evelyn works for a company contracted by Cross Meridian. That is supposed to make me feel better?" "No, then leave." "Dad, stop." He looked at me. Your mother is lying in a hospital bed, and you are standing out here with the man whose company is trying to take our home. He stopped the acquisitions for 72 hours. I froze. Jonathan's eyes sharpened. How do you know that? My father realized his mistake. Too late. I looked at him. The board decision was made this afternoon. He said nothing. That information was not public. I know how companies work. That is not an answer. He turned toward Jonathan. You think because you came down here in an expensive coat, we are supposed to forget what your name means? I am not asking you to forget anything. You never had to ask. You paid people to do it for you. Jonathan accepted the accusation without flinching. Did Marcus Vale contact you today? My father's jaw tightened. No. Has anyone from Cross Meridian contacted you? No lakefront property assessment? No civic transition analytics? Something moved in Dad's eyes. Small, but visible. Jonathan saw it too. You recognize that name, he said. My father's face hardened. I recognize your methods. The company paid your settlement. My settlement came from South Shore Fabrication. The original record says otherwise. There was no original record. Jonathan became still. What do you mean? Dad looked at me. Then at him. I am done answering questions. He reached for the door. Jonathan spoke before he could enter. 3 weeks before the accident, I came to your house. My father's hand stopped against the handle. The air inside the hallway seemed to thin. My mother had told me the same thing. She had called it a warning. Dad did not turn around. I remember. What did I tell you? You tell me. I cannot. That made him look back. Jonathan's voice remained controlled, but something beneath it had shifted. I remember the house. I remember your wife opening the door. I remember sitting at a kitchen table with a plastic tablecloth covered in yellow flowers. My breath caught. That tablecloth had stayed in our kitchen until I was 12. I remember you had drawings taped to the refrigerator. Jonathan continued. One was a blue horse. One was a family standing beneath a purple sun. That was mine. I whispered. Both men looked at me. I had been 9. I used purple crayons for everything because the black ones always broke first. Jonathan's eyes held mine for 1 second, then returned to my father. I remember coming to warn you about the East processing line. Dad's face lost color. But I do not remember how I learned about the risk, Jonathan said. And I do not remember what happened after I left. My father gave a bitter laugh. That is convenient. It is not. You built an empire and misplaced the parts where people got hurt. Jonathan's jaw tightened. I remember events. I do not remember every conversation from 15 years ago. You remember my tablecloth. Because I had never been invited into an employee's home before. The honesty silenced all 3 of us. Jonathan looked at the hospital room door. Your wife said something to me before I left. Dad's hand remained against the handle. What? She said, if you know it is dangerous, why are the doors still open? My mother would have said that. Simple. Direct. Impossible to answer. What did you tell her? I asked. Jonathan looked at me. That I did not own the plant yet. Shame entered his expression. I believed responsibility began after the acquisition closed. Dad's voice dropped. And 23 people paid for that distinction. Yes. The word landed between them. No defense. No denial. My father looked away first. A nurse approached us. Mr. Hart, your wife needs rest. Only 1 visitor should remain. I will stay, Dad said. Hannah appeared from the far end of the hall with Ryan behind her. They both stopped when they saw Jonathan. Ryan's reaction was immediate. He moved toward us. What is he doing here? Ryan, I warned. Jonathan looked at my brother. They had never met. But both knew exactly who the other was. Ryan was 36 feet tall, broad through the shoulders from years of physical work. His dark jacket was stained near the sleeve from the delivery warehouse. Beside Jonathan's tailored overcoat, the difference between their worlds was visible before either spoke. "You are Jonathan Cross," Ryan said. "Yes. My family does not want you here. Your sister was followed. By your employee. By a contractor. Same money." Jonathan did not argue. Ryan stepped closer. "You sent someone to watch the neighborhood meeting?" "No, you expect me to believe a vendor acts without instructions? I expect you to question it." "That sounded better in your office?" "Probably." Ryan almost moved closer. I placed one hand against his arm. "Stop." His eyes remained on Jonathan. "You think freezing a few letters makes you a hero?" "No, good. Because my father still limps. My mother is in that room. And my sister has been working for you for less than a week, but someone is already following her." Jonathan's eyes hardened at the last sentence. Not toward Ryan. Toward himself. "I am aware." "Then stay away from her." "Ryan." "No, Evie." He finally looked at me. "You do not see what is happening. I see more than you think. You see a powerful man listening to you, and you think that makes him different. I do not think anything yet." Jonathan spoke quietly. "She does not need you to decide what she thinks." Ryan turned back toward him. "And she does not need you speaking for her." "You are right." That answer disrupted the argument. Ryan had prepared himself to fight. Jonathan refused to give him the shape of conflict he expected. Hannah stepped between them. "Mom is stable. That is what matters tonight." She looked at Jonathan. Hannah had spent her adult life teaching first graders, raising Lily alone, and translating our family's chaos into sentences a child could survive. She did not intimidate easily. "Thank you for stopping the man who followed Evelyn," she said. "Now please leave." Jonathan looked toward me. Not for permission. For confirmation. I should have agreed. My mother was sick. My father was hiding something. My brother wanted to push him through a wall. Nothing good could come from Jonathan staying. Then my phone vibrated. "Lila." I opened the message. "The driver has refused to identify who assigned the surveillance. Hospital security found photographs of the Hart residence, St. Bridget's Church, and Daniel Hart's garage on his phone." My stomach tightened. Another message appeared. "There are photographs from before Evelyn joined Cross Meridian." I read the sentence twice. Jonathan saw my expression. "What?" I turned the screen toward him. His face changed. The control remained. But the warmth disappeared completely. "How far back?" he asked. I typed the question. Lila responded immediately. "Earliest timestamp, 6 weeks ago." 6 weeks. I had started at Cross Meridian 6 days earlier. The surveillance had begun more than a month before I entered the wrong elevator. "This is not about my review," I said. "No," Jonathan replied. Ryan looked between us. "What are you talking about?" I handed him the phone. He read the messages. Then looked toward Dad. "Why would someone photograph the house 6 weeks ago?" My father stood beside the hospital room door. His silence became an answer. "Dad," I said. "What happened 6 weeks ago?" "Nothing." "Stop saying that." Hannah took the phone from Ryan. "Were there pictures of Lily?" The fear in her voice cut through everything. I typed another question to Lila. "Were any children photographed?" 3 dots appeared. Then the answer. One image includes a young girl leaving the residence with an adult female. Faces are visible. Hannah went pale. Ryan swore. My father closed his eyes. Jonathan removed his phone. "Lila, send the full file to outside counsel and the Chicago Police Department. Not company security." He listened. "Yes. Every image." Another pause. "Have 2 independent security professionals remain on the block." I stepped closer. "No." His eyes met mine. "There is a child involved." You agreed not to put people outside the house. That was before I learned Lily had been photographed. You cannot make that decision. I just did. Anger rose through me. You do not own our street. No, you do not own this family. No, then stop acting like protection gives you authority over us. His face became unreadable. Behind me, Ryan said. For once, I agree with the billionaire. Jonathan's voice lowered. If someone photographs a 6-year-old as part of a corporate surveillance operation, I will not leave her unprotected because the adults around her dislike me. The words struck hard. Hannah held the phone against her chest. Can they remain out of sight? I looked at her. Hannah. This is Lily. I know. Then I do not care who pays. Them. Jonathan answered her directly. They will remain in an unmarked vehicle. They will not approach the house or speak to anyone unless there is an immediate threat. Hannah nodded. Do it. I wanted to argue. But fear for Lily swallowed my pride. Jonathan made the call. My father opened the hospital room door. You want to know what happened 6 weeks ago? We all turned. He looked at Ryan. Bring the truck to the side entrance. Why? We are going home. Mom is here. She will be here overnight. Hannah can stay. Hannah nodded slowly. Dad looked at Jonathan. You wanted answers. Jonathan said nothing. Come to the house. My father continued. You can sit at the same kitchen table. Then he entered my mother's room. At 11:17 that night, Jonathan Cross followed Ryan's truck through South Deering in a black sedan. I rode with my father. He sat in the passenger seat beside me, staring through the windshield. The streets were nearly empty. Wet pavement reflected the orange glow of streetlights. Closed storefronts passed on either side. A freight train moved slowly in the distance, its horn stretching through the neighborhood. Behind us, Jonathan's sedan remained 3 car lengths back. No flashing lights. No security convoy. Just one dark vehicle moving through a part of Chicago men like him usually observed through development maps. Why did the surveillance begin 6 weeks ago? I asked. Dad did not answer. What happened? He rubbed one hand across his injured leg. Thomas Brennan's widow died in August. I waited. Her name was Kathleen. After Thomas died, she kept his union files in their basement. The files about South Shore? All of them. What happened when she died? Her nephew called me. Said the family was clearing the house. He found a locked metal box with my name taped beneath it. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. What was inside? I do not know. You did not open it? The box was empty. I glanced at him. Then why did he call you? Because there was a note. What did it say? Dad looked toward the dark buildings beyond the window. Daniel, if they come for the neighborhood, find the ledger before they do. My heartbeat changed. What ledger? I do not know. You have known about this for 6 weeks? Yes. And you said nothing? To whom? The police. And tell them a dead union representative left a note about a ledger no one has seen. To Jonathan. Dad laughed bitterly. The note warned me about people connected to his company. You do not know that. 2 days after I brought the note home, the gray car appeared. Did you keep the note? Yes. Where? He looked at me. That is what I am showing you. We turned onto our street. 2 unfamiliar vehicles were parked near the corner. Unmarked. Dark. Jonathan's security. A porch light switched on as we passed Mrs. Delgado's house. Someone moved behind the curtains. People in our neighborhood noticed strange cars. They noticed expensive ones even faster. Ryan parked in front of the garage. Jonathan's sedan stopped behind him. When Jonathan stepped out, the entire street seemed to register his presence. He wore no tie. His overcoat was open. The wind moved through his dark hair, revealing more silver near his temples. Without the tower behind him, he looked less untouchable. Still powerful. But human enough to be cold. My father unlocked the front door. The house was quiet without my mother and Lily. Ryan switched on the kitchen light. It illuminated the worn cabinets, the cracked tile near the sink, and the same table Jonathan remembered. The yellow flower tablecloth was gone. In its place was a plain blue vinyl covering my mother had bought at a discount store. Jonathan stopped in the doorway. His eyes moved across the room. The refrigerator. The window above the sink. The basement door. He remembered. I could see it. My father removed his jacket and hung it on the back of a chair. Sit. Jonathan sat. No hesitation. No demand for privacy. No concern about the cracked chair beneath an $18 billion man. Ryan remained standing near the counter. I sat across from Jonathan. Dad moved toward the garage door. Where are you going? I asked. To get the note. He disappeared into the garage. For several seconds, no one spoke. The refrigerator motor hummed. Water moved through an old pipe inside the wall. Jonathan looked toward a faded mark beside the kitchen doorway. Evelyn, age 10. My mother had written it in blue ink. Above it were marks for Hannah and Ryan. Lower down, newer ones recorded Lily's height. Jonathan stared at them. Your house is marked for demolition, he said quietly. Acquisition, Ryan corrected. Your people prefer cleaner words. Jonathan's eyes remained on the wall. Yes. You ever had your height written on a door frame? Jonathan looked at him. No, maybe that is why houses look like parcels to you. The remark landed. Jonathan accepted it. My family moved 9 times before I was 16. Ryan's expression shifted slightly. I had read articles about Jonathan's childhood. None had mentioned 9 homes. My father worked at the port, Jonathan continued. When the union struck, we missed rent. When he was injured, we missed more. So you understand. I understand losing a home. No, Ryan said. You understand leaving one. Jonathan looked toward the marks again. That may be true. The garage door opened. Dad returned carrying a metal toolbox. He placed it on the table. The box was old. Red paint had peeled from the corners. A rusted lock hung open at the front. He removed a false bottom beneath the tool tray. Inside lay a folded sheet of paper sealed in a plastic bag. He handed it to me. The handwriting was uneven but legible. Daniel, if they come for the neighborhood, find the ledger before they do. The accident was not where it started. MV knows the first number. JC was never told the last one. Do not trust the settlement file. Thomas the first read it twice. Then handed it to Jonathan. His eyes stopped on 2 sets of initials. MV Marcus Vale. JC Jonathan Cross. Marcus knows the first number, I said. Jonathan was never told the last one. What numbers? Ryan asked. No one answered. Jonathan studied the note. Where is the ledger? Dad opened his hands. If I knew, we would not be here. Thomas must have expected you to understand. He overestimated me. The accident was not where it started, I said. Maybe it began with another project. Jonathan's gaze remained on the paper. Or another company. Dad lowered himself carefully into a chair. 6 weeks ago, I went to Kathleen Brennan's house. You said the box was empty, I replied. It was. But there were scratches inside the lock. What kind? Fresh. Jonathan looked up. Someone opened it before you arrived. Yes. Who knew about the box? Kathleen. Thomas. Maybe her nephew. And you. Dad's expression hardened. I did not know until he called. Jonathan's phone vibrated. He ignored it. What happened after you brought the note home? The gray Chevrolet appeared 2 days later. First near the garage. Then outside Hannah's school. Hannah's school. Anger flashed through me. You did not tell her? I thought I could handle it. You thought you could handle someone following your daughter and granddaughter? I did not know Lily was in the photographs. You knew enough. Dad slammed his palm against the table. I was trying not to pull you into it. You applied for a job at Cross Meridian, Ryan said to me. I looked at him. Then at Dad. His silence became heavy. My stomach tightened. You knew I applied. Of course. Did you know before I told you? Dad looked away. How? No answer. I stood. How did you know? The letter arrived. What letter? Cross Meridian Human Resources sent a background verification notice. That came after my final interview. Yes. You had already seen the gray car. Yes. And you let me take the job? I told you not to. You said it was because companies like Cross Meridian exploited neighborhoods. That was true. It was not the whole truth. No. My hands began to shake. You let me walk into the company connected to a warning left by a dead union representative. You had worked your entire life for that opportunity. So you chose my career over my safety? No. His voice broke. I chose not to make fear the only inheritance I gave you. The anger inside me faltered. Dad looked older beneath the kitchen light. I spent 15 years teaching all of you to avoid questions because questions had already cost us enough. Then you came home with that job offer. He looked down at his hands. You were so proud. I remembered the night I told them. Mom had cried. Hannah had opened a bottle of sparkling cider. Ryan had made a joke about me becoming a corporate spy. Dad had hugged me with both arms. For once, he had not mentioned Jonathan. I thought maybe the past had stayed buried, he said. And then? The appraisal notice came. What notice? Dad opened a drawer beside the table. He removed an envelope. The date was 5 weeks earlier. The sender was Lakefront Property Assessment Services. Inside was a notice requesting access to evaluate the exterior and foundation of our house. The letter referenced a South Harbor planning review. You told us it was a city tax assessment, Ryan said. I lied. You are becoming very good at admitting that, I said. He accepted the pain in my voice. The gray car appeared the next day. Jonathan placed Thomas Brennan's note beside the letter. Someone knew the note had reached you. Or they were already surveying the neighborhood, Dad said. The photographs focused on your family, Jonathan replied. That is not a property survey. His phone vibrated again. This time, he checked it. Lila had sent a file. Jonathan read silently. Then looked at my father. The driver from the hospital was not employed directly by Lakefront. Who paid him? I asked. A private investigations firm called Calder Strategic Services. Ryan laughed without humor. Another shell company? No. A real firm. Former police officers. Corporate investigations, employee misconduct, litigation support. Who hired them? Jonathan turned the phone toward us. The engagement letter showed an authorization code. CMGEC04. Cross Meridian, I said. Yes. Which department? Executive Committee. I looked at him. Who is on the Executive Committee? Marcus. Victoria. Me. And 2 division presidents. Could someone use your authorization? No, then which one signed it? The code belongs to my office. The kitchen became silent. Ryan stared at him. Your office hired them. It appears that way. You said you did not know? I did not. Convenient. Jonathan's face hardened. Someone used a dormant authorization certificate issued to my office 3 years ago. For what? An internal corruption investigation. Who controlled the certificate? Lila and me. I thought of Lila. Precise. Competent. The only person on the executive floor who appeared capable of telling Jonathan no. You trust her? I asked. Yes. The answer came too quickly. Just as my father's denials had. I saw Jonathan recognize it. His expression changed. Trust is not evidence, I said. No. He looked down at the authorization. Then we verify her access. For the first time, I saw what it cost him to apply his own rule to someone close. My father pointed toward the note. What does first number mean? Jonathan placed both documents side by side. Marcus knows the first number. I was never told the last one. Could it refer to the accident count? I asked. Officially 7. Actually 23. Marcus knew both, Dad said. Unless 23 was not the last number, Jonathan replied. My father stared at him. What are you saying? Jonathan looked toward me. The archive contained 23 worker claims. Yes. How many settlement payments? I opened my laptop. The machine took too long to wake. Every second felt louder than the last. I entered the secure database. 23 claim records appeared. I filtered by payment transaction. 22. I counted again. 23 injured workers. 22 settlements. One is missing, I said. Dad leaned closer. Whose? I compared the names. 7 hospital cases. 16 clinic cases. One name appeared without a completed payment. Samuel Ortega. My father stopped breathing. You know him, I said. He worked the East Line. What happened to him? Dad's eyes remained on the screen. He disappeared after the accident. Ryan frowned. Disappeared? He did not come back to work. His landlord said he moved. Did anyone speak to him? Thomas tried. The phone was disconnected. Was he undocumented? I asked. No. Born in Indiana. Former Navy mechanic. Jonathan moved beside me. Open the claim. I clicked. The record contained no medical report. No settlement. Only one scanned document. A resignation letter. Samuel Ortega accepted responsibility for unauthorized modifications to the pressure control system and resigned effective. Immediately. My father shook his head. He did not write that. How do you know? Samuel could barely sign his name. Dyslexia. He dictated maintenance reports to me. The resignation letter was 3 paragraphs of polished legal language. At the bottom sat a clear signature. Samuel R. Ortega. Dad pointed to it. That is not his signature. Jonathan leaned closer. How certain are you? I worked beside him for 11 years. I opened the document metadata. The letter had been scanned during the digital archive migration 3 years earlier. Original creation date, unavailable. Authorized by M. Vale. There was also a compensation reference. No amount. Only a transaction code. First 01. My pulse changed. Marcus knows the first number, I whispered. Jonathan's eyes sharpened. Open the transaction reference. Access denied. Executive authorization required. Jonathan entered his credentials. The system paused. Then returned an error. Certificate revoked. He tried again. Same result. You are locked out? I asked. Yes. Who can revoke your certificate? Lila. Ryan folded his arms. Still trust her? Jonathan did not respond. His phone rang. Lila. Everyone looked at the screen. He answered on speaker. Jonathan, do not access the Ortega file again. Her voice was controlled. But beneath it I heard fear. Why? Because the file is tagged with a dead man protocol. What does that mean? I asked. Lila heard me. Evelyn is there? Yes. So is Daniel Hart? Yes. A pause. Then leave the house. My father stood. Why? Someone activated the Ortega file 6 weeks ago. Every access attempt since then has triggered a notification. To whom? Jonathan asked. We do not know. You revoked my certificate. To stop the system from broadcasting your location again. I looked toward the front windows. The security vehicles remained near the corner. Again? I said. Lila continued. The first access signal came from Daniel Hart's address 5 minutes ago. My laptop. The system had identified our location. Can anyone track it? Jonathan asked. Yes. How precise? Within 30 feet. Ryan moved toward the window. Jonathan's voice sharpened. Stay away from the glass. Too late. Headlights turned onto our street. One vehicle. Then another. A black SUV slowed near the corner. Jonathan spoke into the phone. Contact the security team. They have already seen it. Outside, one of the unmarked security vehicles pulled into the road, blocking the SUV's path. The black vehicle stopped. For several seconds neither moved. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs. Dad switched off the kitchen light. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the laptop screen remained pale against our faces. Another pair of headlights appeared behind the SUV. The vehicle reversed. Fast. Tires scraped against wet pavement. It backed into a driveway, turned, and accelerated away. Jonathan's security car followed. The second remained on the block. No one inside our kitchen breathed normally. Lila's voice came through the phone. One team is pursuing. Police have been notified. Jonathan looked at my laptop. Disconnect it. I pulled the power cable. It has a battery, Ryan said. I shut the system down. Jonathan removed the battery panel himself. His movements were quick. Practiced. That surprised me. You know computers? I asked. I built logistics systems before I hired people to build them for me. He removed the battery and set it on the table. The front of the house returned to darkness. My father stood near the sink. This is what I tried to keep away from you. I looked at him. No. This is what grew because everyone kept silent. The words hurt him. I saw it. But he did not look away. You are right. For the first time that night, he said it without resistance. Jonathan remained beside the table. Thomas Brennan's note lay between us. The accident was not where it started. MV knows the first number. JC was never told the last one. Do not trust the settlement file. Samuel Ortega was the missing worker. The first transaction. The false resignation. And someone had been waiting 15 years for his file to be opened. What happened to Samuel? I asked. Dad shook his head. I do not know. Jonathan looked at the note. Thomas did. Then why did he not go to the police? Maybe he did. We all turned toward him. Jonathan continued. Corporate. Security logs every external inquiry involving the company. Police requests. Regulatory notices. Subpoenas. Can you search them? I asked. Not from this device. Your access has been revoked. To the Ortega archive. Not the full legal system. His phone rang again. This time, it was not Lila. The screen showed Victoria Cross. Jonathan's sister. He rejected the call. It rang again immediately. He answered. What? A woman's voice came through, sharp and controlled. Tell me you are not at Daniel Hart's house. Jonathan looked at my father. How do you know where I am? The executive committee received a security notice. You accessed a restricted archive from a residential address connected to an active acquisition dispute. You received the notice? Yes. Along with Marcus and every member of the committee. My stomach tightened. Marcus knew where we were. Who created the notification protocol? Jonathan asked. I do not know. Find out. You need to leave that house before this becomes a governance crisis. A family was followed to a hospital. And you personally intervened? Yes. Victoria exhaled. This is exactly what Marcus warned us about. What did he warn you? That the Hart family was preparing litigation and using a junior employee to gain access to internal records. Ryan stepped closer to the phone. We did not even know she had access. Jonathan raised one hand, stopping him. Victoria continued. The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. You will be asked to explain why you suspended a billion-dollar development after private meetings with a 24-year-old employee whose family benefits directly. The words felt like dirt thrown across my skin. Jonathan's face became cold. Choose your next sentence carefully. I am protecting you. No. You are repeating an accusation designed to discredit her. I am describing how this will look. To whom? Investors. Regulators. The press. Reality is more important. You did not build Cross Meridian by believing that. The silence between them carried years. Family. Business. Old injuries Heather had named. Jonathan's voice lowered. Tomorrow at 8. Full board. Marcus attends in person. He is in New York. Then he flies back. You cannot order, I just did. He ended the call. My father looked at him. Your own sister thinks we are setting you up. My sister thinks perception is the same as truth if enough money depends on it. Is she wrong? Jonathan looked at me. No. The answer was not about Victoria. It was about him. He had built a company where appearance could outweigh reality. Now that system was turning against him. Outside, a car door closed. Jonathan's security guard knocked twice. Ryan opened the door but kept the chain latched. The guard showed identification. Mr. Cross, the SUV was abandoned 6 blocks east. Driver fled on foot. Vehicle registration? Stolen plates. Anything inside? A camera. Long-range lens. Printed photographs. Of this house? The guard's expression tightened. Yes. Anything else? A photograph of Mr. Hart at South Shore Fabrication. My father gripped the edge of the sink. Recent? No. Approximately 15 years old. Jonathan looked toward Thomas's note. Bring everything to outside counsel. Not Cross Meridian headquarters. Yes, sir. The guard left. Ryan locked the door. No one spoke for several seconds. Then my father walked toward the stove. He turned on the small light above it. A weak yellow glow filled the kitchen. What are you doing? I asked. Making food. Ryan stared at him. Someone just tracked us to the house. And none of us has eaten. It was the most Daniel Hart response possible. He opened the refrigerator. Cold air illuminated containers, milk, mustard, and the pot of tomato soup from the previous night. He set the soup on the stove. Jonathan remained beside the table. Dad looked at him. You eat tomato soup? Yes. Store-bought bread? Yes. You sure? It is not imported. I will survive. Ryan almost laughed. The danger had not passed. My mother was still in the hospital. A stranger had followed me. A black SUV had tracked an archived file to our home. But my father heated soup because feeding people was the only form of control he still understood. 10 minutes later, the 4 of us sat around the kitchen table. Dad, Ryan, Jonathan, me. Hannah remained with Mom at the hospital. Lily slept safely at Mrs. Delgado's house with one of Jonathan's security teams watching the block from a distance. Dad placed a chipped bowl in front of Jonathan. The founder of Cross Meridian looked down at canned tomato soup and 2 slices of toast. Your company owns hospitals, Dad said. 1 hospital network. My wife's insurance rejected a kidney scan last month. Jonathan's hand stopped near the spoon. What reason? Not medically necessary. Was it? She has kidney disease. That was not my question. Dad studied him. Yes. Her doctor appealed. And? Denied. What hospital? Mercy South. Jonathan looked toward me. Cross Meridian owns 38% of the parent network. I felt anger return. So you profit when they deny care? Yes. Again. No defense. Dad lifted his spoon. You say yes easily. It does not make the fact less true. What are you going to do about it? Jonathan looked at the soup. Then at my father. Get the claim reviewed? Dad shook his head. That fixes one bill. Yes. What about everyone who does not eat soup with the owner? Jonathan became still. The question reached him. I saw it. Not as criticism. As a problem he could not reduce to one phone call. I do not know yet, he said. My father nodded. That is the first useful answer you have given. Jonathan ate the soup. No comment. No performance. He simply ate. For several minutes, the kitchen returned to ordinary sounds. Spoons touching bowls. The furnace turning on. A freight train in the distance. I watched Jonathan glance once toward the height marks beside the doorway. He had spent the last 20 years buying buildings. But I wondered how many times he had sat inside one and understood what the walls meant. My father broke the silence. You asked what you told me 3 weeks before the accident. Jonathan set down his spoon. Yes. You said the pressure control replacement orders did not match the shipping records. A memory seemed to move behind Jonathan's eyes. Valves had been invoiced but never delivered. Yes. You were the senior maintenance mechanic. Yes. I asked whether the East Line was operating. Dad's jaw tightened. I told you it was. What did I ask you to do? Shut it down. The words settled heavily across the table. Ryan looked at Dad. You never told us that. Dad stared at his bowl. Jonathan said his engineers had found irregularities during the acquisition review. He told me the line should remain closed until an independent inspection. Why did you refuse? I asked. I did not. Jonathan's eyes sharpened. Dad continued. I shut it down the next morning. My breath stopped. But the accident happened 3 weeks later. I said. Yes. Who restarted it? My supervisor. Why? He had a written clearance. From whom? Meridian Industrial Holdings. Marcus? Jonathan asked. The document carried his acquisition team code. Jonathan leaned forward. I did not own Meridian Industrial before the closing. No. But Marcus had formed the holding company to manage the transaction. What did the clearance say? That the replacement valve had been installed and the safety concern resolved. Was it installed? No. Did you inspect it? I tried. My supervisor ordered me away from the line. Why did you not contact me? Dad gave him a hard look. I did. Jonathan froze. How? You left a card. A memory returned to me. My father had once kept a black business card inside his old toolbox. I had seen it as a child but never read the name. I called the number 3 times. Dad continued. Your assistant transferred me to Marcus. I did not have an assistant then. Someone answered your office. Jonathan's face became unreadable. What did Marcus say? That you had reviewed the clearance and approved the restart. I did not. I know that now. Why? Because 2 days after the accident, you came to the hospital. Jonathan stared at him. I visited? You stood outside my room. I do not remember. You had blood on your shirt. Something broke through his control. Not dramatically. A tightening around the eyes. A short breath. My blood? I do not know. Dad's voice became quieter. You asked me who restarted the line? Marcus arrived before I could answer. He took you into the hallway. What happened after that? You never came back. The kitchen seemed to disappear around Jonathan. He looked toward the dark window as if the glass might contain the missing memory. You were injured that week, Dad said. Jonathan turned slowly. What? It was in the business pages. Car accident on Lakeshore Drive. You spent 4 days in the hospital. I remembered reading about Jonathan's late wife dying in a car accident 12 years earlier. This was earlier. A different crash. I was told I fell asleep while driving, Jonathan said. Did you? I do not remember the impact. Ryan stared at him. You lost part of that week? I had a concussion. Dad's eyes hardened. Or someone needed you to forget. No one moved. The accident at South Shore Fabrication. Jonathan's hospital visit. Blood on his shirt. A car crash. Missing memory. Marcus taking control of every conversation. Thomas Brennan writing that Jonathan was never told the last number. What was the date of your crash? I asked. Jonathan removed his phone. October 17th. Dad's spoon slipped from his fingers. It struck the bowl. The sound cracked through the kitchen. What? I asked. He looked at me. The plant accident was October 16th. Jonathan's crash happened the next night. Less than 36 hours after 23 workers were injured. What were you doing before the crash? Ryan asked. Jonathan's face had gone pale. I left the hospital. Alone? I do not know. Where was Marcus? I do not know. Dad stood. His chair scraped against the floor. He moved toward the garage. Where are you going? He did not answer. We followed him. The garage smelled like oil, cold metal, and damp wood. Tools hung above a workbench. Engine parts filled labeled bins. Mr. Alvarez's truck occupied the center bay with its hood raised. Dad opened an old steel cabinet. From the back, he removed a sealed plastic evidence bag. Inside was a wristwatch. The glass was cracked. The leather band was darkened by an old stain. He placed it beneath the work light. Jonathan stopped breathing. The watch was expensive. Even damaged, I could see that. The initials JDC were engraved on the back. Where did you get this? Jonathan whispered. Thomas. Found it near the service exit the morning after the accident. Jonathan picked up the bag. His fingers trembled. The first visible tremor I had ever seen from him. Why did Thomas keep it? Because the security report said you were never inside the restricted area. Jonathan looked at my father. But I was. The blood on your shirt had to come from somewhere. A memory moved across Jonathan's face. Sharp. Painful. Then vanished. I remember steam, he said. No one spoke. I remember an alarm. His breathing changed. I remember someone on the ground. He closed his eyes. Not 23. Dad gripped the workbench. What do you remember? Jonathan opened his eyes. A body. The last number. My skin went cold. The official report listed no deaths. I said. The 23 claims listed no deaths. Ryan added. Dad looked toward Samuel Ortega's name on my dark laptop screen in the kitchen. Samuel. Jonathan held the watch beneath the light. I think I saw Samuel Ortega die. The garage became silent. A man had disappeared. A false resignation had appeared in his place. A settlement ledger had been rewritten. And Jonathan Cross had crashed his car the night after visiting the plant. What happened to the body? I asked. Jonathan stared at the cracked watch. I do not know. Dad's voice was barely audible. That is the last number. 7 officially injured. 23 actually injured. 1 man missing. 1 possible death. 24. Thomas Brennan had written that Marcus knew the first number. Jonathan had never been told the last one. The accident had not harmed 23 people. It had harmed 24. And someone had removed the final man from every record. My phone vibrated. A message from Cameron appeared. Evie, call me immediately. Someone broke into St. Bridget's after the meeting. I called. He answered breathlessly. What happened? The basement office was searched. Was anything taken? Property letters. Sign-in sheets. Copies of the access waivers. Anything else? A pause. Mrs. Delgado found something behind the old filing cabinet. What? A metal book. My heartbeat slowed. What kind of book? Handwritten accounts. Dates. Payments. Company names. Jonathan looked at me. He could hear Cameron through the phone. What is written on the cover? I asked. Cameron hesitated. South Shore Worker Relief Fund. My father closed his eyes. The ledger. Where is it now? With me. Do not take it home. Why? Because someone has been looking for it for 15 years. A sound came through the line. A door opening. Then Cameron's breathing stopped. Cameron? No answer. Cameron. A man's voice spoke in the background. Calm. Polite. Familiar. Mr. Reed, I believe you found company property. Jonathan's face became cold. He recognized the voice before I did. Marcus Vale. The call ended. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Jonathan reached for his coat. Where are you going? I asked. St. Bridget's. I am coming. No, you do not get to leave me behind. This may be dangerous. So was my elevator. His gray eyes locked onto mine. The words had escaped before I understood them. My elevator. Not his. Not the executive elevator. The place where 2 lives had crossed because I was tired, late, and on the wrong floor. Jonathan looked toward my father. Daniel Hart stood beneath the garage light with 15 years of silence carved into his face. Go, Dad said. Ryan reached for his jacket. I am coming too. My father shook his head. You stay here. I am not letting Evie, your mother and sister need someone they trust. Ryan looked at me. Then at Jonathan. If she gets hurt, she will not, Jonathan said. Ryan stepped closer. That was not a request for reassurance. Jonathan held his gaze. I know. We left the garage at 12:26 in the morning. Jonathan's security car pulled in front of us. I sat beside him in the back of the sedan. The city moved past in dark windows and empty intersections. Neither of us spoke for several blocks. His cracked watch remained inside the plastic bag on his lap. You really do not remember Samuel? I asked. I remember pieces. What pieces? Steam. A red warning light. Someone shouting that the doors were locked. The service exit? Maybe. And blood? He looked down at the watch. On my hands. I swallowed. You went inside after the accident. Yes. Why? I think Thomas Brennan called me. You think? I remember his voice on the phone. What did he say? Jonathan closed his eyes briefly. Come before they clean it. The words chilled me. Before they clean it. Marcus had reached the hospital before Jonathan could question my father. Jonathan's car crashed the following night. Samuel disappeared. The records changed. And 15 years later, the ledger had appeared inside a church basement just as Cross Meridian returned to take the surrounding neighborhood. You trusted Marcus, I said. Yes. Do you still? Jonathan looked out the window. No. It was the first time he had said it aloud. The admission seemed to cost more than losing millions. Marcus had not merely worked beside him. He had helped build everything. The ports. The hospitals. The towers. The name. If Marcus had hidden a death, manipulated settlements, and used Jonathan's office to surveil my family, then Jonathan's empire had not been built beside betrayal. It had been built through it. Why St. Bridget's? I asked. My father attended union meetings there. Your father? He worked the docks 10 blocks from South Shore Fabrication. The connection settled slowly. Thomas Brennan. Daniel Hart. Jonathan's father. The church basement had served workers across the industrial corridor for decades. Did your father know Thomas? Yes. Did he know my father? Jonathan looked at me. Probably. Another piece of our families existed beneath the history we had been told. We reached St. Bridget's in 9 minutes. The church stood dark against the wet street. One basement window glowed near the side entrance. The door was open. Cameron's car sat at the curb. The driver's door remained ajar. My heart pounded. Jonathan touched my wrist before I could open the door. Not hard. Not controlling. Just enough to stop me for 1 second. Stay behind me. I will stay beside you. His eyes searched mine. Then he released me. Of course you will. We entered the basement together. Folding chairs lay overturned. Papers covered the floor. The whiteboard from the neighborhood meeting had been wiped clean except for one faint line. Do not sign. Cameron stood near the filing cabinets. His lip was bleeding. Two men in dark suits flanked him. Marcus Vale stood beside the old wooden desk. A narrow metal ledger rested beneath his hand. He looked at Jonathan. Then at me. No surprise. Almost relief. I wondered how long it would take you. Jonathan's voice became quiet. Step away from the ledger. Marcus smiled. You still believe ordering the room will make it yours? It is not company property. It contains confidential settlement information. It contains evidence. Those are often the same thing. Cameron looked at me. I am fine. One of the men beside him tightened his grip. Jonathan's eyes moved toward the man. Release him. Marcus sighed. Jonathan. Now. The man let go. Cameron stepped away, touching the blood at his lip. I moved toward him. You okay? I have had worse client meetings. Marcus watched us. You see what she has done to you? He asked Jonathan. No one answered. 6 days, Marcus continued. She has worked for you 6 days, and you are standing in a church basement after midnight threatening men you employ. I do not employ them. Cross Meridian pays the firm. You used my authorization to protect the company. You photographed a child. Marcus's smile disappeared. Collateral documentation. The words made my stomach turn. Jonathan took one step forward. The two men near Cameron moved instinctively. Marcus raised his hand. They stopped. You followed Evelyn to a hospital, Jonathan said. I followed a potential leak of privileged information. You tracked Daniel Hart before she joined the company. Because he received Thomas Brennan's note. My father had been right. They knew about the note. How? I asked. Marcus looked at me. Kathleen Brennan's nephew contacted the company before contacting your father. He offered to sell the box. And you bought it? I bought an empty box. Someone had already taken the ledger, Cameron said. Marcus looked toward him. Apparently. Jonathan's eyes remained on Marcus. What happened to Samuel Ortega? The room changed. Marcus's face did not. But the men beside him looked at each other. Jonathan saw it. So did I. Samuel resigned, Marcus said. No, you have a letter. A false one. According to Daniel Hart. According to the signature. Marcus's voice cooled. Be careful what you accuse me of. Jonathan stepped closer. What happened to Samuel? For the first time, the history between them became visible. Not friendship. Not partnership. A balance of secrets. Marcus looked at the cracked watch inside the bag in Jonathan's hand. Recognition passed across his face. You found that. Thomas did. You should have left it buried. What happened? Marcus's gaze moved toward me. Then back to Jonathan. You want the truth in front of her? Yes. You will lose her. Jonathan did not look at me. That is not your decision. Marcus released a slow breath. Samuel Ortega did not die in the accident. Hope flickered. Then disappeared when Marcus continued. He survived for 11 hours. My body went cold. Where? Jonathan asked. In a private clinic. Why was he not taken to a hospital? Because he had been inside the pressure control chamber. What does that mean? Marcus looked at the ledger. The plant was not only processing industrial chemicals. Jonathan's face hardened. What was it processing? Components. For what? Marcus smiled without warmth. Your first government contract. Jonathan stared at him. I had no government contract. Not under your name. The accident was not where it started. The first number was not the number of injured workers. It was a contract. A payment. A hidden business that predated the Cross-Meridian Empire. Marcus's hand remained on the ledger. Samuel saw what was being moved through that plant, he said. So did Thomas. So did your father. My father? Jonathan whispered. Yes. Jonathan's control finally cracked. Not loudly. His face simply emptied. Marcus continued. Your father was not only a dockworker. The basement seemed to hold its breath. He was the man who arranged the shipments. Jonathan looked down at the cracked watch. My father died before the acquisition. No. Marcus's voice softened. He disappeared. The same word used for Samuel Ortega. Disappeared. Jonathan's father had been declared dead after an industrial accident on the docks. At least that was what the public biography said. What are you saying? I asked. Marcus looked directly at Jonathan. Your father was alive the night South Shore fabrication failed. Jonathan did not move. He called Thomas Brennan, Marcus said. Thomas called you. And you arrived before I could stop you. Where was Samuel? With him. Where? Marcus glanced toward the ledger. The last page. Jonathan reached for it. Marcus closed his hand over the cover. Think carefully. Move your hand. If you read that page, the company changes forever. It already has. And the city? Jonathan's eyes became cold. The city was never yours to bargain with. Marcus looked at me. For the first time, I saw fear in his face. Not fear of prison. Not fear of Jonathan. Fear of whatever was written inside the ledger. A siren sounded outside. Police. Marcus stepped back. Jonathan took the book. No one tried to stop him. He opened the metal cover. Pages of handwritten payments filled the ledger. Worker settlements. Medical costs. Consulting fees. Political donations. Property purchases. Numbers stretching across 15 years. Jonathan turned to the final page. One line had been written in red ink. October 16th, transfer completed. Beneath it were two names. Samuel Ortega. Michael Cross. Jonathan's father. Beside both names was the same destination. Calder Facility, North Lake. And beside the destination was a status. Alive. Jonathan stared at the word. 15 years earlier, after the accident, both men had been alive. Samuel Ortega. Michael Cross. Neither had been reported dead. Neither had returned home. Marcus spoke quietly behind us. Now you understand. Jonathan closed the ledger. No. He turned. Now I understand why you were afraid she would find it. Police lights flashed through the basement windows. Red. Blue. Red again. Marcus looked toward the stairs. You think this ends with me? No, Jonathan said. His eyes moved to the ledger. It begins with North Lake. I stood beside him as officers entered the basement. 6 days earlier, I had been an entry-level analyst worried about a relocation model. Now I was holding the arm of a billionaire who had just learned his dead father might have survived 15 years beyond the date on his grave. Jonathan had come to South Deering believing he would uncover corruption inside his company. Instead, he had uncovered a missing man inside his own family. And somewhere beyond Chicago, hidden behind a facility no public record admitted existed, the past might still be alive. So might the people who had spent 15 years making sure it stayed silent.